Welcome back to another episode of the Wet Dreamz Podcast. I'm your host, Jose Gonzalez. I'm a sex therapist and a mental health counselor.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brad Hinman. I'm also a certified sex therapist. I'm a marriage and family therapist and a licensed professional counselor. I see mainly men with out of control sexual behavior and couples.
Cool. So today we're talking about what your first visit to a sex therapist would look like, some of the things to think about before you make the appointment, and some of the things that we do, some of the things we don't do. I think a lot of people, anytime you're starting something new, it can be a lot of anxiety and a lot of things. I remember the first time I started CrossFit. I've been doing it for a while, not necessarily well, but I still do it. But I remember going into the gym and you people are grunting and they're dropping all the weights, and I come in and 5:30 in the morning, I'm looking and like, what the hell is going on? Like, what the actual fuck is happening? Like, it's so intimidating. And I think my first workout, I like threw up or something, like it was so intense, so I remember that feeling of those new things. Like, it can be intimidating and you're like, what the hell is happening? And you're like, oh, is there someone that's nice, like that can talk to me or whatever? And then you eventually kind of get used to it and you start to talk to people and whatever. So anything that we do new, there's always that initial scared part of us, and therapy in general and sex therapy is no different than that or whatever. Have you started new things before?
I actually had very similar feelings when I went to do my sex therapy training.
True.
Because I'm like, it's like the place that I did my training, University of Michigan, is like 2.5 hours from here. So on the drive over here, I was like, are they going to be like having sex in the room? Are they going to be like
like an orgy or something?
People going to be naked? Like, what's going on? But it was very professional. Everybody was clothed, But I do remember I was like, what is going to happen? What's this going to look like?
Right.
Because I was already a therapist. had been trained as a therapist and had some experience, and then went over there and I was just like, it's funny that your mind like freaks you out about stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like 90% of what we worry about isn't true, right? Like,
right. It's in our own brains.
Yeah.
For sure. And it's the self-doubt or whatever. I had the same feeling, like, because the program had doctors and physical therapists and other like professionals. I'm like, well, I'm just this like counselor here. Like, am I gonna know what the hell I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And I guess at the beginning nobody really knew what the hell they were talking about.
Right,
So
exactly.
that's the point of the training. But yeah, it's just funny. Our self-doubt comes in and it's like questioning ourselves. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
For sure. So why do you think specifically sex therapy, both men but also couples? That's what we see. So we're going to be talking about both. Why do you think people avoid sex therapy or like wait so long to do sex therapy or therapy in general or whatever? But why do you think people avoid specifically sex therapy, you think?
I think they don't understand what we do.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand that they actually need what we do. And I also think that when they think of that they need therapy for a sexual issue, they think I need a therapist. Like, I don't even think a sex therapist is on their radar.
On the radar, yeah, for sure.
It's like, when we did our sex therapy training, one of the different professions that was there was pelvic floor physical therapist. I had that same, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, I knew that there were physical therapists.
Yep.
And so it's like that kind of a thing, like maybe if I had needed a pelvic floor physical therapist, I probably would have said I need to go to a physical therapist because I didn't even know that was a thing.
Right.
Like,
and you just assume it's like your muscles and your knees or your shoulders, just joints and stuff, but you don't think about your pelvic floor.
Right.
Or,
And so I think that's the way it is with sex therapists. I think that there's some people that they don't even know that we exist, let alone, they may need our services, but they would just go to a regular therapist. And a regular therapist isn't trained in how to talk about or deal with sexual issues or sexual problems. Because I don't know if our audience knows that, but there is zero training on how to talk to people about sex in a mental health therapy program. any program, whether it's social work, marriage and family therapy, counseling, psychology, none of them take classes in sex therapy.
Sexual health. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so the client would go to a regular therapist, and the regular therapist is not trained on how to handle this. So the regular therapist is probably going to change the subject.
Right.
Tell me about
deal
your
with
kids.
Anxiety,
tell me
or deal with depression or the relationship as a whole.
Right.
Definitely. Right. Right. So there's this idea that one is a lot of people don't necessarily know exactly what sex therapists do, or that they actually need that. I mean, that's definitely one. And I think another thing that holds people back too is like the embarrassment. Like, I have to come talk to this stranger about sex things or about a relationship, or, in couples is oft stereotypically, in my experience, has been the male doesn't want to talk about the details of stuff. Like, this is private, but it can happen for both. But, one or both partners is like, this is private and secret. Like, I don't want to talk about it with some stranger, or they feel like they have to talk about all the details right up front from the very beginning. Like, this is everything we do, and let me describe in detail. You know what I mean? Like, let's just go. Like, it's, while you can, but that's not necessarily, it has to be that way where you got to just spill your guts automatically,
Right. Well, and I do think that, like, most people are not used to talking about sex in like verbally, like words coming out of their mouth. They're not used to talking about that. Even, unfortunately, as I've learned, with their own partner. Like, a lot of times people don't talk about what they like sexually and what they don't like sexually, even with their own partner, let alone with a complete stranger, right? In a building that they've never been in before. And so I think that people just aren't used to talking about it. I remember years ago, I had a client, and I was doing his intake, and, I was asking him, like, how often do you masturbate? Do you ejaculate every time? Do you look at porn? How often do you have sex with your wife? How, do you ejaculate when you have sex with your wife? Like, I was asking him all the questions, and he started crying. And he was like, it wasn't just a tear, like, he was basically sobbing. And I'm like, what's happening? Like, tell me. So I kind of paused the questions, and I'm like, tell me what's happening. He said, you know more about me in 10 minutes than my wife does in 30 years of marriage.
Dang.
And
that's
I'm
crazy.
Like, oh.
Yep, you definitely need to be here. Yeah, that's
so then it helped me realize, like, people just aren't used to talking about this, and nobody knows the answers to those questions, right? That I was asking. And like, it's pretty intimidating for people, I think.
Right. And it's normal because nobody talks about it. So it's normal to feel like apprehensive when you want to start sex therapy, or uncomfortable because it's like, whoa, this is you're asking a lot of information or whatever. That's all normal because like you said, we don't talk about it. So it's okay to feel that way. It's just, you just need to know that the sex therapist that's what they do. You know what I mean? So it's a bit of a trusting thing. And I get it's hard, but there's a bit of a trusting thing there of like, I don't know this person. Are they going to treat me with care or sensitivity of how I feel, And it's normal to feel those feelings for sure.
Yep.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's just interesting. Like, I've had a similar experiences of just people saying like, oh, like one example I had was an erection. Like, one of the guys was like, oh, you can actually continue having sex even though you don't have a full 10 out of 10 erection, and he was like, that's not something he was going to tell his partner, because the assumption is like, oh, I have to keep going and I have to have my erection strong, and if it doesn't stay at 10, then I got to stop and sex is over. Like, people do things without even realizing because you're not talking about it and you're not saying it to your partner. So it's just interesting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's such a taboo thing.
Yeah. And then, like, because we don't talk about it, the fears or whatever that we have in our head, they become real. Like, they become truth to us, because there's nobody there to be like, no, that's not really a thing, right? Like, it's not really how that works. And so our fears or our insecurities become reality.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And another side note, another thing that kind of holds people back, I think, too, from therapy in general, but also sex therapy, is this idea that like, oh, it has to be really bad before I need to get therapy or whatever, you know, like we're not that bad off, or it's not as bad, so like we don't need to go to therapy, you know what I mean? But it's actually the opposite. If you come earlier than you think, it probably will have a better outcome than you think it will, or whatever, you know. But too often people wait till it's too close to too late, if you will, or like at the cusp of like ending the relationship, you know. But there's this that thought is there of like, oh, only really bad people in really bad situations get therapy. Like, I mean, I think it's definitely changing with younger generations. I think it's becoming more of the norm of therapy as a whole. Not necessarily sex therapy, probably, I don't know, but I think that's still part of the myth there of like, you have to be really bad. You know,
the phrase I use is people wait until their relationship is on life support before they seek help. You know, if you like use a medical analogy, right? Like, don't wait. We don't wait. Well, some people do probably, but you don't wait to go to the doctor until your heart has stopped, right?
Right.
So the sex therapy or the relationship therapy equivalent with that would be they wait until their relationship is on life support, where there's really no hope of it coming back, and then they come to therapy, right? And we're supposed to fix that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and oftentimes it's, most of the time when couples come in, is like, this has been an issue since the beginning of their relationship in some form or another. They've had times where it's been better, times where it's been different, but the core of the thing has been around for so long, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, now we have to unravel 20 years of this thing, you know, while you're close to getting divorced. You know what I mean? Like, damn.
That's another phrase that I use, is you've been practicing it wrong for decades, right? Like, that's pretty ingrained now. You have a really bad habit of even communicating with your spouse or sex or whatever. Like, you've been doing it incorrectly for many years, and so you've ingrained those bad habits.
Yep, definitely. And another thing that pops to my mind, specifically with guys, I feel like we've seen this often, where there's this phenomenon, I'm sure there's a name for it, whatever, but where a guy will reach out. I've had it plenty of times. They'll reach out for therapy, and even sometimes will make the initial appointment and then kind of fall off the face of the earth. You know, there's this phenomenon, something about making the call perhaps makes people feel like, okay, I've done something. You know, that's also a normal thing that happens, and you can expect, you know, so maybe being able to push through that a bit and be like, okay, well, I made the appointment, and we follow through. But that's something that happens fairly often. Like, they'll make an appointment and then, okay, and never show up, or like, you know, and I get it. You know, it's embarrassing, but
I had a couple recently. They made an appointment, didn't show. A couple weeks later, they made another appointment, didn't show. And then their third appointment, and I was like, what are the chances that they're going to show? But they did. They showed up. You go. And then they actually addressed that, what I just said. Because I think one of the two sessions that they didn't show up for, one of them had a panic attack on their way to the therapy appointment.
Yeah, it's real.
So people have feelings about this, right?
Yeah, it's intense for sure, and it's understandable. It's a stranger. Like, how many strangers in the street you go like, hey, so I was me and my wife were using a sex swing the other day, and blah blah, whatever, you know. It's not something you talk about, you know, but we got you, if you will. For sure. Yeah, definitely. So you know, people have made the appointment assuming they're gonna come or whatever, they've committed to coming and stuff like that. What can people expect, again, both guys that come in and couples? What can people expect leading up to their first session, or the first session of a sex therapy appointment or whatever?
The first thing I think to keep in mind is that everything that happens in our office is confidential, right? And we take that very seriously. We protect their confidentiality, and you know, so their secret is safe with us, I suppose, right? Is an easy way to say that. Yep. And I talk to my clients, because everything you say to us is safe. You can, you know, be honest with us, answer the questions forthrightly and honestly, because all the questions that we ask is going to be based on your answers to the previous questions. And so, I think confidentiality is a big one. Being truthful is a big one. More things that they can expect. We are professionals. We are fully clothed when we see people. We don't have sex with our clients. That's probably another later.
That's
the don'ts, right?
Yeah, that we can integrate it.
We don't have sex with them. We don't watch them have sex.
Right. We don't do physical exams.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
in other professions or whatever. We're not touching you.
Right. And so, we're going to be very professional. Yes, we're going to be talking about sex, and we're going to use sex terms. Like with my clients, I want them to use the terms, right? I don't want them to, like, we hooked up. Well, what does that mean? You had lunch? Like, I don't, say the word. Like, we're all adults here, right? And so, well, just because words mean different things to different people, right? And so I want to be sure what we're talking about.
Right. So and so often I've had like, they'll say a word and I assume what the meaning is. And down the line, you're like, oh, you never actually had sex with them?
Right.
Or like, wait a minute, that changes the context. Like, I'm sure you've had that, like,
yes,
they'll say a word or they say it in a certain way and you're like, you assume what they're saying, but it wasn't that, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So often.
So I make them say the word, like whatever words they're comfortable with.
Sure.
Like it doesn't have to be the anatomical, medical words, but I need to know exactly what we're talking about. And so, I think that another thing that they can expect is that it's going to be as comfortable as we can make it for them, right? That it's, it's not tell me,
right. What type of porn did you watch?
Right.
Now say it.
say it. So it's not pressure. We're not gonna force you to do to talk about stuff that you don't want to talk about. Although you're not going to want to talk about any of it, but
right.
but we're going to be gentle, right? And so, it's not going to be like an in-your-face thing. And really we're like, I think the biggest thing to expect and the biggest truth of it is we're here to help, right? We're here to help you solve the problems that you need help solving. And, I tell my clients this all the time, that if it's not a problem for you, then it's not going to be a problem for me. I'm not going to be like, no, that's terrible. You should not be doing that.
Right.
Stop it.
Right. Exactly.
Like if you're fine with it and it's not causing problems for you, then I'm fine with it. Right. It's the things that you say, okay, this is a problem. Then we're going to talk about it and we're going to try to figure out how to solve that problem together. So I think that's another thing to expect, right? Is that we're here to help. We're here to identify the areas that are problems for you and then help you find solutions to those problems.
Yep. And also we're not judgmental. I mean, most therapists aren't judgmental, but on an extra layer of sex therapy things, like I don't care really what you're doing.
Right.
Like you said, like if you find it an issue, then it's an issue. If you don't think it's an issue, sure, then I'll assume that, or we can it doesn't matter. I don't care what you do, So I'm not judging anyone. And we've heard at this point, almost heard it all, probably not at all, but we've heard a lot, a lot. And it's like, I'm not gonna make a face. You're not gonna see disdain. I'm not gonna say anything that's negative towards that sexual act that you're talking about or sexual preference or whatever. Like, I don't really care. I just want what you're doing. I want you to feel happy in what you're doing, and you to feel like you're feeling healthy and you're not harmed and whatever. Like, outside of that, I don't care. I don't give a shit.
Right.
Like, do your thing.
Yep. And that's huge. That it's so much a part of the way that I do therapy that I forgot to mention that there's no judgment.
Yeah. I got you.
Thank you. Because I do tell my clients that the first session is that you're not going to get judgment from me. It literally for me is I'm looking for what is a problem for you. I'm not sitting here judging you and thinking you're a horrible person or you shouldn't be doing that or whatever. I'm here to support you, and like I joke with people and say, you don't pay me enough to judge you.
Right. For sure.
But I wouldn't be in this business if I was just sitting here judging people, right?
Absolutely not. You wouldn't last long.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah. So much of the initial experience, part of the initial experience is like any other therapy experience, like consent forms, confidentiality, background information, we're getting some background stuff. The key difference is like specifically sex related and probably questions that you haven't necessarily considered. The amount of times I've had clients be like, oh yeah, you asked some good questions, or like I could tell the questions were like pertinent or good or whatever, because it's things they haven't necessarily thought in that much detail, or that like in fine detail, so that might be a little bit different, but that's not necessarily different than normal therapy where you're talking about stuff that's uncomfortable, or maybe you haven't looked at it in a certain way. That's not too different, so yeah, I mean, so what are some common goals, just really quickly, some common issues we see then when that come into therapy, and we've talked about this in other podcasts, but it's a good place to put it, that come in?
Desire discrepancy, like one partner wants sex more often than the other partner wants sex. Sexual dysfunction issues, like erectile dysfunction, anorgasmia, which is like the female is unable to get orgasm, which is way more common than what you think. And so, or way more common than what porn would tell you. Infidelity is a huge one. Both physical infidelity, emotional infidelity, but also porn, wherever that would fall in there.
Right.
Like most, in a heterosexual couple, most females consider pornography infidelity, and so that's classed in there as well. Distance, like kind of falling out of love with each other, is another fairly common one. I've had several. I mean, we're in a small town, and I've had several, like, I want to open up a relationship, but I don't know how, or I want to open up my relationship and my partner doesn't want to. I've helped people navigate that more often than I thought I would.
In the tiny town. It's true. Agreed. And also like divergent sexual preferences or whatever. I don't know, like kink versus vanilla or whatever, like matching the two, like one partner's more, that seems fairly common around here too, again, for a small town, like some differing preferences is interesting, and matching the two.
Like I have kinks, or I have fantasies, or I have fetishes, and my partner doesn't, not only does not have those, but doesn't like those. Right.
There's a verse to it almost. And some of them, that certainly.
So I've had a fair amount of those as well.
Definitely.
I'm trying to think. Sexual pain. I've had some of those too. Premature ejaculation. I've had some of those.
Delayed ejaculation. Did you say that before? No.
I don't think I did, but I have had some of those too.
Delayed ejaculation, yeah.
I think some that I've heard other sex therapists talk about, like sex after cancer, sex after childbirth. I've also had a fair amount of trans clients, right? So transitioning from one gender to another. And helping through that process, and even parental support in that. I've had some clients whose children were somewhere in the LGBT spectrum, right?
Definitely.
So they need support for that, right? On how to, like, what their reaction is and how to kind of navigate that.
Yep, exactly. Right. So the point, I mean, that's perfect, because there's a million issues there. But the point is how broad of a spectrum sex therapy can be. And I think it's important to note, like, it, just because it's not necessarily like sex with my partner, like there's other issues in the sex therapy realm, and probably ones that we've missed, that would constitute you going to a sex therapist and getting value out of a sex therapist. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, I think that's also, like we said before, like people not knowing what sex therapists do. That's part of it, of not knowing what issues that a sex therapist can deal with, you know, and just assuming maybe it's like my erection and that's all they really do or whatever, you know, but there's so much other stuff that you can get support for or whatever.
I've literally had people more than one, when they find out what I do, that I'm a sex therapist. I'm not talking about clients. I'm talking about, you know, the cashier at Subway.
Yeah.
When they
If
find
you're
out
listening
that I'm a sex therapist, they're like, well, what is there to talk about? And then they literally do this with their hands. What is there to talk about? And I'm like, that and the whole lot more.
Like, you think is that simple.
Like, we're not just sitting here 8 hours a day, 7 days a week talking about penis and vagina, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's it.
There's a lot more that goes into it, emotions and feelings and habits and traditions and the way you were raised, and you know the way you were raised versus how you want to be, and
it's past sexual experiences and past relationships and sexual trauma. I mean, it's just it's insane. It's vast, definitely. So clients that come in, again, both individuals and couples, what can they do to prepare for kind of that first session, or to prepare for sex therapy in general, but especially that initial kind of session with their therapist? What are some things they can do or think about as they prepare for that first session?
I love that question.
Good. Thanks, ChatGPT.
So what I would love them to do is think about their goals, right? And I feel like goals is a word that everybody tosses kind of out there, but nobody really knows what it means, right? So what I mean by I want my clients to think about their goals before the first session is, what do you want to get out of therapy, right? What do you want to get out of sex therapy? Included in that is, what is my job? What do you feel my job is as a therapist? Like, what do you want me to do?
Yep.
And what are you going to do?
I like that.
Because it's not, like, therapy isn't just you come and get entertained for an hour while I sing and dance, right? Well, you need to do something too. What are you willing to do, right? Are you willing to change? Are you willing to compromise? What are you not willing to change? What are you not willing to compromise, right? And so if you think about some of those things before therapy, it makes that initial session easier, because at some point during the first session, we're going to ask you what your goals are.
Yes. Absolutely.
And we're going to ask it pretty much that way, right? And then, like, I've had too many clients be like, I don't know. And then I'm thinking, well, then why are you here? Like, if you don't know why you're here, why are you here? Yeah. You know, do you do that to your car mechanic when you take your car in, and the mechanic's like, why did you bring your car? I don't know.
Figure it out. Like, you know, there's like thousands of pieces of components in this car. I don't know.
Exactly. So, you know, just think about ahead of time, like, what do I want to change? What am I willing to change to get what I want changed? Those are all goals. Those are goal answers. Answers to those are goals. And so, you know, I think also prepare yourself to use real words, right? And like, so you're actually going to be talking about sex. You're going to be talking about, and again, sex isn't just penis and vagina. Sex included in the sexual umbrella is masturbation,
foreplay,
right? Like, there's lots of things included in that. So, however one might do that, try to get yourself comfortable using those words, because we need to hear words in order to help you. So you have to actually say the words. You know, and we recognize, I mean, we're being funny, but like, it's, and we realize it's a serious topic, but it also is like, again, we are here to help you, and we need information to help you. Another thing, I guess, to be aware of, it's not really something for them to prepare, although it can be. We're gonna take some form of sexual history when you come to the first session, right? So thinking back, And I've had clients come actually with it all written down already.
Which is nice. Yeah. I do like that.
Like a little timeline, you know? So maybe that is something that they can think about ahead of time. But we want to know previous relationships. We want to know the first time you had any kind of sexual experience. We want to know about masturbation. We want to know about porn, all those kinds of things. So the first session isn't super bearing your soul sort of thing. It's more history type questions,
background.
We're also going to ask, are you on any medications for anything, and have you been diagnosed with anything, and what about your parents, what about your siblings, kind of stuff like that. So it's the first session isn't probably going to be as tense and dramatic as you think it is going to be. Right. Second session? No.
The second, we'll ramp it up after that. Exactly, yeah, for sure. And I think with that, the couple of things that came to mind is like I like another part of it is like thinking about what are some things you've tried in the past. Like that's like a good one that to implement it within maybe the history. Like, okay, these are the things I've tried in this way, in this order, or whatever. Like, okay, cool. That helps me to know what are some things you've already done, and then also what was even a little bit helpful, or maybe wasn't not helpful at all. Like that's a good one. And then the other thing I randomly thought about was like expect humor for me at least. Like I feel like especially with couples, like I enjoy, it should be fun, right? Like sex and all this stuff should be, in my mind, should be fun and should be light and should be like, like enjoyable, So I think a lot of times I try personally to mimic a little bit of that in therapy and sessions of like, hey, we're talking about something serious, but like we can be funny, we can be silly, like we can say things that you're like, oh, I can't believe I said that. Like, cool, I like that. Give me more of that. You know what I mean? Like I think and of course the first session is going to be tense, but expect that there will be some of that for me. People that see me, eventually it's going to be silly and stupid and funny and whatever, you know what I mean? Because I think that needs to get back into the relationship, because at some place at some point in the relationship that was lost, and now it's this heavy serious, like shameful thing that's happened. You're not having sex for months or whatever it is. Like now it's like so heavy and deep. Like it wasn't like that always,
Yeah, and I think there's humor's a part of the sessions that I do as well. I think humor helps people share, right? It helps. I guess I should qualify when we say humor, we're not making fun of people.
Yes, at their expense. Yeah, it's not right. Humor at their exactly. Thank you.
But it's, we can laugh with our clients when, they say the word nipple and then they giggle.
Right.
We can laugh about that too. Because it's an awkward conversation because you're just not used to talking about it. And so we can help you to do that. We can help you to make that better and easier for you to talk about those things. Because if it was 100% like boom, heavy emotional stuff, that would be hard to take. And then people might not come back. Right. So,
right. Exactly. For sure. And another one that comes to my mind too is like the idea of like, it's okay not to know where to start or not to know what the issue is. Like you can come and be like, I don't know, like this is what I've experienced, but I don't know what the hell's going on. And that's the point, like, again, there's no judgment if you're coming in and you're like, I'm confused. Like this has got off the rails and I have no idea what the hell happened. Like, okay, then we can start there, like being honest and being open as possible. Of like, it's a shit show. Please help. Like, you don't have to come in to therapy or to sex therapy and be like, this is what's happening and this is why it's happening. If you knew that, you wouldn't have come into therapy in the first place. You know, like it's okay to be like, vulnerable in that sense of like, I don't know what's going on. Help, please.
And I've had people say, I don't know where to start. I've had more than one person say that to me. And we can help you with that, right? So sometimes I'll say, well, start at the beginning, right? Tell me about your first sexual experience. Also, another thing for clients to be aware, I think, is you don't have to know all the answers, right? That, like if you knew the answers, you wouldn't be here, right? So, it's okay to say, I don't know, right? To any of the questions that we ask you. You know, we may push back a little bit and say, well, if you did know, then what, you know, what would the answer be here?
Right.
You know, or tell me more about, you know, how that feels or whatever.
Yes.
But it's okay to, you don't have to know all the answers ahead of time.
Right.
And we can help you discover where those answers are hidden right, inside of you.
Yep.
So I think that's another potential area where people would not seek sex therapy because they don't know what.
Right.
Sometimes they don't even know how to fully articulate what the problem is.
Right. And they feel like they need to know in order for you to help them or whatever, but that's not the case, you know, for sure. Yeah. And a quick note also too, another thing, I suppose it's in how to prepare, but with insurance or with paying for sessions, that's something that popped into my mind. Like sometimes sex therapists, they often will do cash pay, but it could be a mix also of people taking insurances and stuff like that. And maybe like a quick note about insurances and if insurance covers sex therapy. I feel like that's something that people sometimes will ask me, like, tell me more, talk to me about that.
Typically they do. It depends on what the issue is. Insurances don't like to pay for couples therapy.
Right.
But if one person has an identified problem, and a lot of sex therapy type issues, there is an identified person, you know, that we're going to bill your insurance under because that person has a problem that the medical insurance wants to reimburse for.
Right.
And so, you know, for example, like vaginal pain upon penetration, insurance is going to pay for that.
Right.
Because that's an issue that they've deemed as acceptable.
Right. Yeah,
to pay money for. And I guess we should point out, the insurance companies are the ones that determine whether they'll pay, and we don't determine that.
Yes.
And so, and they are funny sometimes about what they'll pay for and what they won't pay for.
Yep.
And so, like, for example, delayed ejaculation and premature ejaculation, they'll pay for that as well. Most erectile dysfunction types things they'll pay for.
Right.
But we have people at the front desk that will call insurance to find out if they'll get reimbursement and what that reimbursement is and so on and so forth. Right.
And generally it's covered in the same manner that any other, in the same way that your other individual therapist is covered. There's usually not an issue as far as covering. I mean, there's obviously issues with insurances and deductibles and all that crap, but that's outside of insurance covering it. So most of the time sex therapy is covered in the same way as regular therapy, you know, so if that's a barrier. But then also there's some people that take just private pay, like just cash based, and that's an option too or whatever. So, you know, if that's a concern, then you should be fine. But look into your insurance. I mean, that's ultimately something you can prepare for before a session, like looking into the insurance and what your insurance specifically says or whatever. But
that's a great point. That should be added to the list of things that people need to do before they come here. Is call your insurance, even if it's just what is my deductible and what is my copay.
Yes.
If you know those things, you're going to be ahead of most of the people that walk in our door.
Exactly.
And so, because your insurance company will tell you as the client things that they will not tell us as a provider. So you can get more questions answered than we can even. So that's why it's important for you to know ahead of time what your coverage is and what your copay and what your deductible and all that kind of stuff. Because that's your expense, right? You need to be aware of your expense.
Yes, right. And then again, that applies to any type of therapy you're trying to get. Really, any type of medical service you're trying to get.
The dentist, the doctor, all of them.
Oh my God.
Need to know.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. For sure. Anyway, so yeah, hopefully, I hope that you know, brings some calm to people. It's going to be a little awkward, of course. Like, that's just what it is. Like, when you start something new and when you're being vulnerable with a stranger, like, there's gonna be some awkwardness. Like, I get it, but just know that we're not judging you. We've heard it all, and we're, it's super brave and courageous to be like, hey, this is the spiel that I always give my clients in the beginning, is like, I don't take it for granted when you come in here and you're like, here, let me open my chest, like, to the stranger. Hi, nice to meet you. Let me talk about sex with you and how we have sex. Like, I don't take it for granted. I know you don't take it for granted when someone's like in a vulnerable position and like, here's our sex life, help. You know what I mean? Like, it's super brave and it's super like strong of someone to admit that and be like, I need help, so we get it.
But I think there's benefit too to talking to a stranger about these things. At least I imagine that there is, right? Like, because we don't have, like, we as sex therapists, we are not in your relationship. We don't have a vested interest in you choosing this over this, right? We are neutral, right? It doesn't matter to us, right? Like, like your relationship. I mean, your relationship matters to us because we're therapists, but whether you wear pants or shorts today, doesn't matter to us, right? Like it's, so we're neutral, right? We don't have a vested interest in you choosing one choice over another. So I think that talking to a neutral party, talking to a stranger can be helpful.
Yeah. And I've found that in my own personal counseling as well, of just like, you're not in my situation. There's no incentive for you to be like, oh, well, your wife was right. I don't know. Sometimes I talk about my wife in therapy, so that makes sense. Like, there's no incentive to be like, oh, that was wrong what you said, or she was right, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you're just a neutral party. Like, you have no vested interest.
Right.
And it's the same with sex therapy. I get some satisfaction, of course, of just to see like, oh, you guys are getting better or your sex life is improving. Of course, I enjoy that. But it doesn't affect my life, the amount of times you have sex in your life, or the amount, or what you do, or using a dildo or not using a dildo, or talking to your spouse about sex, or using porn, or whatever. Like, none of that affects my life, and not in a way that I'm not trying to be an asshole, but I don't have an interest, a vested interest in that. It doesn't affect me, so bring it to me. I got you.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I got you. Got your back. Stranger. Anyways, thanks for listening to our podcast. Hopefully that you got some good information off of that. We'd love to hear about people's stories, about their stories of starting therapy and even sex therapy, if they've started it in the past, or any questions you may have, more questions about sex therapy, whatever. We just love to hear from you. The Wet Dreamz Podcast with a Z on all major social media, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. And feel free to reach out. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for listening.
The Wet Dreamz Podcast and any content posted is intended for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes only. We are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional, diagnosis, or treatment. Listeners should not disregard or delay in obtaining a medical advice for any medical or mental health condition they may have, and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.